Okay, I think it's about time. It's 1 minute past, just to be mindful of everybody's time. We'll get started here. So hello everybody, and welcome to our Wellbeing Webisode. This webisode's focused on sleep health. My name is Emily, and I'm a health services specialist here at Geisinger. And with me today is Dr. Marie Morse, and Dr. Morse is the Director of Child Neurology and Pediatric Sleep Medicine at Geisinger Janet Wise Children's Hospital. And today what we're going to be discussing is why sleep is such a fundamental part of our well-being, and review some information that you could take with you today to help better your sleep. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. This information is being provided to increase your awareness and is not intended to be any sort of medical advice. If you believe you have any certain medical conditions or you have specific questions regarding your specific health, we ask that you please see and talk to your physician. So welcome, Dr. Morse, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. This is exciting.
Yes, I'm excited to dive in here. So just to start us off, I think we can all agree that sleep is vital for our health. But from doing research, it seems like many of us might not be getting enough sleep. So to start us off, I wanted to touch on some trends or maybe some recommendations. So Dr. Morse, how much sleep should we be aiming for each night? And I'm curious to see, are there any trends or statistics that you see regarding the average American, how much the average American adult sleeps?
Sure. So first, before even digging into some of these sleep statistics, I want to make sure that we have the viewers fully engaged, because when they hear pediatric doctor, they're probably like, all right, what does this kid's doctor know anything about adult health? So just in terms of full kind of, what are my credentials? Technically, adult neurologist with special qualifications in child neurology. All of my training is in adults and pediatrics. And a lot of the research I do in some of my clinical practice also is across the ages. So with that stated, this information that you're going to get today is going to be applicable to not only you, but potentially some of your friends, family, and your kids. So when looking at the average amount of sleep that an individual should be getting, it is relevant to talk about the full lifespan because of the fact that it is age dependent. The younger you are, the more you sleep. The older you are, the less that you may sleep. And so on average, for the typical adult, we'll say that it's about 7 to 9 hours. When you're getting 65 and older, we'll say it's about 7 to 8 hours. When you are talking about that brand new baby, though, that might be 14 to 17 hours in a day. And although as a mom of 2 kids, there was very frequently times where I was saying, gosh, can it at least all occur at night or some of it occur at night? It is very intentional that it is designed to be across 24 hours. Now, with that stated, you are 100% correct that sleep is pivotal for optimal physical, mental, cognitive, academic, you name the type of health and performance you want to have, it is pivotal. It is the foundation. Now, some of the trends we're seeing, however, are very alarming, and many of you who may be tuning in are going, that is me. She must be sneaking into my room and seeing me sleep at night, or very well not sleep at night. Because what we know is that in 2014, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, had said that the United States is in a major public health crisis because of the number of adults with sleep disorders. At that time, we were seeing 1 in 5 adults having features of a sleep disorder. What we know from the most recent Gallup polls that were conducted earlier this year is that we now are seeing that more than 60%, 2 in 3 adults, are having features of at least insufficient sleep, meaning they are not getting that right number of hours of sleep. When we're talking about insufficient sleep, this is representing only 1 of over 70 sleep disorders that exist. Now, I wish I could say that this was just insulated to adults, not because I don't like adults, because I'm an adult, I like myself, but I also have a lot of friends who are adults, and I want them to sleep well. But it actually is also impacting our children. We recognize that in middle school and high school students, we're seeing anywhere between about 58 to 73% getting that same challenge with insufficient sleep. We are currently a country of FOMO, fear of missing out. We are continuing to wear sleep deprivation as a badge of honor. And we very frequently are using phrases like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And unfortunately, that is only going to make it more likely for you to get to that outcome a lot sooner.
Great information for starting us off here. And I read that getting the correct amount of sleep at a good quality can help us really focus on tasks throughout the day. We could be more alert. We could be maybe less moody and help restore our energy. There's probably so many. Sleep seems to be important for all of us, like you said, to live a happy, healthy lifestyle. Can you talk more about all the other benefits, whether it's for your brain, your body, that we can gain when we are practicing good sleep hygiene?
Sure. So one of the things that I frequently will cite is that I speak about sleep and health all over the world. So I really am extraordinarily passionate about this, not because I'm just a zealot for sleep, but because I'm passionate about change. And so for years in medicine, we have created this arbitrary line in a day of saying that once your eyes close, that it no longer is relevant to what your health looks like. And this dates back to as far as 400 BC, where initial descriptions of sleep were really giving a suggestion that it really is this non-active period of time. What we do know is that you cannot segregate day from night or wake from sleep because they are highly interdependent on one another. If I'm having a terrible day and I'm fighting with everyone, I got in a car accident and all these things, how do you think I sleep at night? I don't sleep so well. I'm ruminating on it. I'm restless. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. Well, what if I don't get that great night's sleep? What do I look like in a day? I'm irritable. I can't function. I can't be able to execute on things the way I would like to. The reality is that when you're looking at sleep health, it is really important for no one to focus on just one component of sleep health. Sleep health is comprised of several facets, and that is duration, quality, timing, and regularity of sleep. And then what does your quality of wakefulness look like? Sometimes sleep disorders are most obvious by what the daytime phenotype or what the daytime symptoms look like. And that helps us to figure out what's going on with the sleep. The reality is sleep is a tool for your optimal wellness and performance. When you're talking about, hey, I'm having a hard time focusing at work, I'm fighting with my colleagues, I really feel like it's taking me longer to do things than I normally would. Many times the first instinct is someone to go, I need to go to a psychiatrist or I need to go to a neurologist. I think maybe I'm having a cognitive issue. I think maybe I have a mood issue. Very frequently, it's based in sleep. When we're not getting that right duration, quality, timing of sleep, what ends up happening is it actually has changes in how our brain is able to optimally function. We become much more impulsive. Our judgment becomes more erroneous. We're more prone to error. It then also is going to take us longer to do things than what we normally would. Because of that impulsivity and that shorter fuse, we're a lot more irritable. The area of our brain called our amygdala, it becomes much more susceptible to us not necessarily processing our emotions the way we normally would. If you think about your toddler who's trying to fight nap time, this is a perfect example of what many of us as adults are walking around looking like. We are really having these very irrational responses. We're fighting it. We look like we could fall asleep any moment. But at the end of the day, we many times are doing this to ourselves because we're not recognizing that correlation.
Great points. And kind of what you alluded to, I heard that the consequences of poor sleep to our health are just as reaching as all the benefits that we get from good quality sleep. We all have those bad days, like you said, where it might just seem like it's impossible to fall asleep at night. And maybe we share a bed with a partner that snores. I know I do. Maybe there are dogs barking at night, keeping us up, deadlines we got to reach, or maybe our thoughts are literally just running wild throughout our head. I think the reasons can really be endless. And can you touch on like any of the consequences to not achieving quality sleep?
Sure. So one of the things I think, again, if I were to reference back, like why have we been so fixated on duration? Well, duration of sleep has been a major area of focus and has even led to major changes in some of the organizations like the American Heart Association, where they've included sleep now in terms of one of their cardiovascular protective efforts. So they used to have Life's Simple 7, it's now Life's Essential 8, and Life's Essential 8 is a reflection of the addition of sleep because of duration. This came out of many different studies that had looked at duration of sleep and had demonstrated in adults who were sleeping less than 6 hours or not more than 9 hours regularly were much higher likelihood than those who are getting the age-appropriate duration of sleep to experience increased risk for all-cause mortality. What does that mean? It means you're more likely to die from anything because of that alone. Well, earlier this year in January of 2024, there was a new publication that had come out that blew this out of the water. Basically, this was looking at the regularity of sleep, meaning how frequently are you maintain the same bedtime and wake time. And so what did regularity do? It said, hold my beer, we're going to throw duration out of the water. And what it demonstrated was that the more regular you slept, the more likely you were to have the same bedtime, same wake time, 7 days a week, week after week after week. There was up to a 25 to 53% reduction in all-cause mortality, being most robust in cardiovascular disease, but also reducing your risk for cancer. This is a reflection of things that we already were suspecting. In 2007, the World Health Organization had come out and stated, shift work disorder should be designated as a carcinogen, a cancer-causing agent. It is important that when we think about this, you would go, wow, that is really brave, like a big thing to state. When you're talking about sleep-wake, it really is a field of sleep-wake health and circadian science, our day-night rhythm. In 2017, a Nobel Prize went to 3 men for their characterization and identification of clock genes. These are genetic instructions of your circadian rhythm. There is a circadian day-night rhythm to every single cellular function in your body, which has even translated into an expected circadian rhythm of when certain diseases are most likely to occur, such as heart attack, stroke, asthma exacerbation, seizure, migraine, you name it. So why do I give this illustration? Because when we are not respecting what our body needs, which is we need this certain duration, this certain quality that is restorative, and it needs to happen at this regular, consistent time of day, you now are forcing your body to function outside of what it's designed to do. So similar to if you're driving your car and its wheels aren't in alignment, that you're at risk of breaking the axle, you can drive that car until you break the axle, and then you need to have it replaced. You don't want to go down the route where you're looking at, is there something in my body I need to be replaced?
Yeah, that's a great example that you use. I think everyone can really relate to that too. And I think just moving into sleep environment next, our bedroom, that's where we spend most of our time trying to catch our Z's. And so I feel like it's crucial to have that good setup, that good environment to get that good quality sleep. What can we do to create an ideal sleep environment?
Sure. So I want to answer this question, but I also want to touch on something you had asked in the last question or mentioned in the last question as well, because it is related to your environment. Are you sleeping alone? Do you have a bed partner? So what is very interesting, American Academy of Sleep Medicine, I very frequently speak on behalf of them, but also do a lot of work with them. I'm a fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. They have done some really great studies looking at what is the likelihood of people experiencing a sleep divorce. And so what is a sleep divorce? This is where people purposefully start sleeping in different beds for a variety of different reasons, but most commonly are related to undiagnosed or untreated sleep disorders that may be existing. Sometimes it's that we're on 2 different sleep schedules. Sometimes, as you mentioned, it's the partner who's snoring, and so I'm kicking you in the back, or I'm telling you to go sleep on the couch. In these surveys, what has been found is that men are more likely to be the ones kicked out of the room. The women tend to get the bedroom, but also that it tends to be affecting more of our millennial population. Our baby boomers, they're tending to be able to tolerate each other, I guess, a little bit better. Our Gen Zers are actually leading the way in a variety of different analyses of really prioritizing health and really looking at every strategy to optimize their health. And so there are definite lessons learned. So instead of forcing each other to sleep in different rooms, it really is giving you that call to action that one of you needs to get that checked out to see whether or not you can get back to bed together, because sleep divorces very frequently can lead to actual divorces. It is important to recognize when you do have a sleep disorder and you are sleeping separately, that obviously is going to negatively impact intimacy. But in addition to that, the presence of a sleep disorder actually does biologically decrease things like sex drive, sex performance, and even can contribute to things like erectile dysfunction and sexual dysfunction. So it is important to recognize, again, sleep is a tool to be able to optimize all parts of health, even ones that sometimes we're not talking about most verbally. Now, when talking about the bedroom environment, it's important to recognize, if you're an adult listening to this, the bed is for two things, sleep and sex. If you're doing anything else there, get it out of the bed. Now, the why is that is because our brains are really smart, and sometimes smarter than what we give it credit for. They start to make associations with the bed as a place for wakefulness or a place to do these other things. And although many of us may engage in things like, I'm just going to watch this TikTok or this social media thing, and then I'm going to fall asleep, that generally is, again, reinforcing this behavior of this is a place for wakefulness, or I'm just going to check one more email. This is a place for me to stress about work. When you think about some of these activities, they are not things that should be done in bed. You can do them before bed, but you want to make sure your bedroom environment is one that is cool, dark, and comfortable. Now, in terms of level of noise, if you have competing noises, or you have things like tinnitus, where you get the ringing in your ears, or there is the possibility of there being episodic noises that can wake you up, utilizing different either sound machines or music or lullabies, whatever it is that becomes more of a constant that will make it less likely for you to be suddenly distracted or alerted by that noise can be very helpful. I'm a person who tends to be a ruminator. So that sound machine or that noise actually helps me to distract myself from my own thoughts. And so there's a variety of ways of doing that. When thinking about the bedroom temperature, you really are actually looking at a pretty cool temperature. We're looking at around 60 to 68 degrees. So if you are trying to sleep in an environment that's in the 70s or more, you may be waking yourself out of sleep just because you're getting hot. If you're a woman who's in that menopausal period, perimenopausal, and hot flashes are keeping you up at night, I hope that you are not one of the women who are hearing that this is normal. It is common. Common and normal is not the same thing. There are approaches that can treat these issues. In fact, hormone replacement therapy for menopause has been shown to improve the quality and duration of sleep, and also can make your mood just feel a lot better. So making sure that if you are finding that your bedroom environment or things that you're experiencing are not compatible with you getting your best night's sleep and your best day, there are things that can be done for pretty much every situation.
I think those are some great tips to take with you. I thought that was really interesting between the boomers, the millennials, and all that. Super, super interesting. And I think in general, between work, family obligations, events we have, we might sacrifice some sleep time to get more done, right? I feel like I've definitely done this before, whether it's working on projects need to be done, and I just feel like there's just not enough time in the day. However, I also think about those people who know they function best on 4 to 5 hours of sleep each night, and that they really become accustomed to it. I know a few people like that. They only get the 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And in this scenario, work or deadlines, a lot of time they're prioritized, right, over our sleep health day in, day out. Dr. Morse, is it possible to train your body to get less sleep consistently and still be able to function properly?
Sure. So very frequently when I hear these types of descriptions, I will respond with, you have accepted a lesser version of who you can be. And so although many times people will state that they can get away with quote unquote less hours of sleep, those same people very frequently will say, oh, I need to move to Florida. I felt so great in Florida and I slept like a baby. No, it wasn't Florida, John. It was actually the fact that you gave your body what it needs, and what you're experiencing is the best form of who you can be. And so although there are people, and in medicine, we do this all the time, we wear a badge of honor, I can operate for 32 hours on 3 hours sleep. No, you can't, John. The reality, and it can be Jane, I'm not saying John or Jane, whatever. But the reality is that this really is a tool. And in fact, as a part of some of the programs that we've built here, both Wake Up and Learn and Sleep to Be Well, which are programs to really empower empower people on their own health journey to be able to utilize sleep as a tool and be informed on all the things that they can do beyond sleep hygiene, because sleep hygiene doesn't fix problems. It only actually prevents it. We actually had created a video as a part of one of the curriculum that's available on time management and sleep, because time management and sleep actually have a bidirectional relationship. As I had alluded to earlier, if I'm not sleeping well, it's taking me longer, I'm more prone to error, and it's not going to give me my best work. The same thing is true is I'm not using my time efficiently, and I feel like I constantly still have things to get done. How do you think I'm falling or staying asleep? So some of the strategies I actually do tell people to consider, and we review in this brief video as well, is saying, why don't you first take a Punnett square and be able to divide out what are the tasks that you need to accomplish. Within those tasks, those are going to be your urgent, high priority tasks. Those should always be your, like, that's the first thing to get done. You then are going to have your urgent, low priority. Someone might want to get it done, but you know what? It's not that impactful. It can wait. Then there's going to be, it's not urgent, but it's super high priority. And then there are those luxury items of that, it's not urgent, it's not priority. That's going to be your social media, the things that can be done at any time. Now that you know what are the things that need to be accomplished, now I want you to look at, for a course of maybe a week, and if you can do it in 15 to 30-minute intervals, how are you actually using your time? It is absolutely startling when you start tracking this, because you now are going, I can't believe I wasted 3 hours checking emails when I was supposed to be writing this paper or attending to something else. I can't believe how social media took this up. I can't believe how me just doing, you name 1, 2, 3. Now, this is not to criticize or stigmatize that you shouldn't have me time. It's a matter of taking the me time and prioritizing that time after you've accomplished those urgent, high priority things, and then being able to utilize that so that you're able to not feel so stressed when you're trying to go to sleep. It also is critically important to know what is your highest peak of functionality. So this is something that is sometimes called your chronotype, your circadian rhythm type. I'm your morning lark. The early morning is when you're going to get the best version of me. By the time it's 5 o'clock or later, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed anymore. Now, with that stated, if I have high priority tasks, I am not a person who should be staying up late to try and get them done. It's only going to take me much longer to get it done, and it's going to not be the quality that is representative of my best work. And so therefore, instead of me going to the gym first thing in the morning, there might be days where I need to skip it, and I need to be able to focus on those tasks at hand first. And so really being able to personalize a strategy to what is most effective for you to live your best life is really what the call to action tends to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And when I was doing some research for today's webisode, I came across a couple different myth and facts that I thought would be interesting just to talk a little bit about. So my first statement that I came across is related to alcohol. So alcohol before bed, it helps me fall asleep. It helps me sleep better. Any truth to this?
Sure. So alcohol is technically a central nervous system depressant. What does that mean? It can induce you going into a subdued state. And so many of us, especially maybe when in college or younger, we had experienced that. I drank and I didn't feel the negative effects of it. I was able to go out all night, drink, fell asleep, and it even got less hours of sleep, woke up, had no issues. What we know about the research on alcohol is it does your sleep no benefits, and especially when we look at different variations of it. So number one, when someone is using alcohol to go to sleep, and it is one of the most self-prescribed hypnotics, self-prescribed things that put people to sleep, it generally comes with a lot of risk in terms of you develop tolerance. What used to take 1 glass of wine, now it's taking me 1 bottle of wine. Now I've moved from wine to now I'm on bourbon. And that obviously has its own health risks. We also know that it impacts what is called our ultradian rhythm, meaning how we cycle through sleep. And it is a REM suppressing substance. And so it actually negatively impacts how we cycle through sleep. And then when we abruptly stop it, can actually cause too much REM sleep. So it causes very fragmented sleep. It causes us to wake up earlier than desired, and it generally is not good restorative sleep. So it is not a recommended thing for you to use as a nightly nightcap.
Absolutely. And then my next one is just regarding naps. So, um, are they bad? Does it depend? Are they good? What are your thoughts?
So this is one where you could have a whole webisode or three on. So I've been interviewed on napping many, many times. And one of the things that I would say is that an occasional nap and you're keeping it to about 20 to 30 minutes isn't necessarily detrimental. If you're a person who's finding that you need chronic naps, that is a red flag because by the age of 5, daytime napping should go away. We have a normal neurologic development with sleep where we can start to consolidate and our sleep should be consolidated to nighttime by the age of 5. If you're finding that you're chronically requiring naps, what that can represent is either insufficient duration, poor quality, or sometimes can be a manifestation of something called a central disorder of hypersomnolence, where your brain is programmed to be more sleepy than others. And these are conditions like narcolepsy or idiopathic hypersomnia. Now, with that stated, there is also equal evidence to say strategically utilizing naps for certain situations can help with augmenting learning, can help with some sports performance. But again, this needs to be personalized to the individual. But by and large, we generally are advocating against daytime napping.
Great point. Great point. And I also want to touch on, is it possible to get too much sleep and how does that impact our health? So we know about too little, what about too much?
So as I had mentioned earlier, when looking at duration of sleep, less than 6 hours and greater than 9 hours, both were associated with increased risk for all-cause mortality. So when looking at too much sleep, many times what I would say is that if I'm seeing a person who's sleeping greater duration than what is age required, it is either a reflection of that an individual is getting inadequate quality of sleep. So they're having obstructive sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, something else. So their restoration isn't there. So they're requiring more hours because they're constantly feeling like they need to catch up. Or it may be a representation of one of these disorders called a central disorder of hypersomnolence, things like narcolepsy or idiopathic hypersomnia. And so if you are chronically requiring a greater than age expected duration of sleep, and you're not feeling well also, you're feeling like you're sleepy, you're feeling like you need to have that, it is something that is worthwhile to have evaluated because it can be a manifestation of sleep disorder. We also can sometimes see this related to other medical disorders like thyroid dysfunction or Lyme disease or mono. However, you get those things tested and it's not that, please don't exclude the consideration of it being a sleep disorder.
Awesome. And I think great points here. A few of my other questions, I know we're running short on time and I want to be mindful of everybody's time. And you touched on some sleep disorders, so I think that's great and when they should really seek help with their sleep. So I just want to kind of allude into about the Sleep to Be Well program, if that's okay. I know that you are the founder of it, and for those who have not heard about this program yet, I would just would love if you could talk more about it and discuss key highlights.
Sure. So Sleep to Be Well and Wake Up and Learn are two programs that I've developed, and I have a great team behind it. Really, the goal of it is, again, empowering individuals on their own journey and making the awareness that sleep matters. And also helping to destigmatize the idea around problematic sleep isn't a problem. So with Wake Up and Learn, it's a school-based sleep education and screening program that's offered free to middle school, high schools. We're going to be working on a younger version of it as well. And it really is to empower students to be able to control something that they can control. So many times we're looking at them struggling with sleep and trying to identify what are strategies to get them more sleep, and also what are features of a sleep disorder. And that has been a very successful program. Because of that success, we then built Sleep to Be Well, which is a program that is offered through our clinical enterprise. So for instance, we have it in child neurology. You come for an appointment for a seizure disorder or headache. We also are going to ask about your sleep. And if we're identifying that you're at high risk, we're going to give you that information. We're going to help you navigate that pathway so you're not on that journey alone. If you're doing a great job, we're also going to give you that feedback. We want to give you that positive praise. We also have two arms that are being offered through our health plan as well. One, partnering with our employers who utilize our commercial plan to be able to offer, again, all the tools in the toolbox to optimize health and wellness, also serving as something that can be very good for burnout, And then also a direct to member where we're offering it to our CHIP members with plans to continue to further expand that. You can definitely check this out on the Geisinger website, either on the Sleep to Be Well or Wake Up and Learn. We have lots of resources, including things like sleep diaries, some video curriculum that if you want to learn 5 to 7 minutes, we got you covered. And then if there are things that aren't there, let us know. We're always constantly working on trying to build more information. For instance, we just have launched with maternal fetal medicine, putting out some really specific education for our moms who are pregnant. Again, another misinformation of that when you're pregnant, you don't sleep well, it's normal. Never normal. It is common. We actually know sleep disorders in pregnant moms put both the mom and the baby at risk. So again, if you take nothing else from today, sleep is a tool that you can use for the best version of you. And if you are concerned about sleep, are you getting the right duration? Are you getting the right quality? Are you getting the right timing and regularity? And if you said no to any of those, talk to your doctor about potentially getting your sleep evaluated, or check out the Sleep to Be Well program. There's a screener there, and we'd be able to get you plugged in to whatever it is that you need.
Awesome. Thank you. I think the Sleep to Be Well program and just everything, it's a great thing to check out. I did throw the link into the Q&A for everyone to see. But of course, I just want to leave it open to you, Dr. Morse. Anything else you want to leave us with? I know we had some questions, but we had also some great conversation. So I just want to kind of give you any last words, anything, any tips, anything.
So one of the things that I would say is that sleep and circadian science is complex, and there is a lot that we're still learning. But what I can say is that if you're a person who has a chronic medical condition, or psychiatric condition, you are at higher likelihood of having a sleep disorder. And I want you to start considering using sleep as a tool, not just to treat your sleep, but to also optimize your experience with some of these other conditions. This is part of the reason we developed Sleep to Be Well, is to really start decompartmentalizing the fact that your full 24 hours are your full 24 hours. Take control of all of them. There have been questions about the different stages of sleep, and that can be a whole webinar on its own. There is a lot of different values to those different stages of sleep, both hormonally as well as restoratively. And you can also check that out on some of the curriculum on Wake Up and Learn Sleep to Be Well. We do cover that in a little bit more detail that can answer your questions of how it relates to overall health and performance.
Awesome. Thank you. And just to be mindful of everybody's time, I don't think we'll have time for questions. But however, if you do want to send either a question in the Q&A, or if you would like to send a question to wellness@geisinger.edu, we can be sure to get you connected with an answer to help you with that question. However, since we are a little later on time, I just want to thank you, Dr. Morse, for really sharing your experiences and your tips today. I think what everybody definitely found some good, useful information, including myself. So very relatable, very informative, very exciting. I think it gives us a new perspective on sleep too as well. So again, if you have any questions, throw them in the Q&A or at wellness.geisinger.edu, and we'd be happy to get you the answer. With that being said, we hope you join us next month. We're going to be talking more about goal setting and really discovering how do we overcome those barriers, how do we stay inspired, that can sometimes be difficult, and how to set goals to take us further out on our health and wellness journey. So with that, I will leave you go today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.